Let's go back in time. It's May 22nd, 1915. We're in the Scottish borders, and it's a beautiful, clear morning. The Great War is raging across the Channel, but here, a dead straight stretch of railway track is just gleaming in the sun. It's a picture of perfect, peaceful tranquility.
But that peace was about to be shattered. This exact spot was on the verge of becoming the site of Britain's deadliest rail disaster in history. It was a catastrophe on an almost unbelievable scale, and it wasn't caused by a bomb or a storm, but by something way more ordinary and maybe, just maybe, a lot more chilling.
The human cost was just staggering. The official death toll is around 226, and the vast majority of them, 215 to be exact, were soldiers, Royal Scots, on their way to Gallipoli. Most of them never even made it out of Scotland.
And it just kept escalating. In this horrifying rapid-fire chain of events, a total of 5 different trains would end up tangled in the wreckage and the fire that followed. You've got a troop train, a local passenger service, a sleeper car express, and 2 goods trains, all in one massive pileup.
So the big question is, right? How on earth could something this catastrophic happen on a clear day on a perfectly straight track with no obvious equipment failure? Well, the official answer seems shockingly simple. But, as we're about to see, that simplicity, well, it might just be the most deceiving part of the whole story.
Okay, so let's start with the official story. According to the Board of Trade inquiry, which was wrapped up just weeks after the crash, the blame was placed squarely on 2 individuals. It was a case of gross negligence. A tragic but straightforward human error. Here's the chain of events. A local train needed to be moved out of the way for 2 late-running express trains, so it was shunted onto the oncoming southbound line. Now, in the signal box, 2 men, James Tinsley and George Meakin, were changing shifts, and in the handover, they completely failed to use a basic safety device, a little metal collar that would have reminded them the line was blocked. They just forgot. So at 6:49 in the morning, they gave the all-clear, sending that troop train barreling down the line at 70 miles per hour straight into the stationary train.
The legal fallout was swift. Tinsley and Meakin were charged and convicted of culpable homicide. That's the Scottish equivalent of manslaughter. They went to prison, and that was that. Case closed. Or so it seemed.
Because here's where the story takes a really strange turn. After serving only about 18 months, both men were released from prison, and they were given their jobs back by the very same railway company. Now, not as signalmen, but still. You have to ask, why? Why would a company rehire the 2 men responsible for the worst crash in its history? This one little fact blows the door wide open to a much darker, much more complex story.
To really get what might have been going on here, you have to zoom out. We need to look beyond that one signal box and see the enormous pressure the Great War was putting on Britain's entire railway system. This might not have just been 2 men making a mistake. This might have been a system stretched to its absolute breaking point.
I mean, think about it. The war was creating a perfect storm. Thousands of experienced railwaymen had gone off to fight, leaving behind a massive manpower shortage. The network was completely clogged with military and civilian trains all vying for space. The troop train itself was made of old, wooden carriages from a totally different railway company. And this is so important, peacetime priorities were still in place. The whole reason that local train was in the wrong place was to clear the line for some late-running civilian express trains.
And those old wooden carriages, they held a terrible secret. They were lit using something called the pinch gas system. Basically, big cylinders of flammable gas were stored right under the floor. So when the trains collided, those cylinders ruptured. The wreckage was instantly soaked in gas and exploded into an inferno so intense, it turned a horrible crash into an absolute nightmare.
And all of this brings us to the alternative narrative. For decades now, survivors, their families, and a lot of historians have questioned that simple official story. They've suggested that the signalmen weren't really the sole cause, but maybe convenient scapegoats for a much deeper systemic failure.
Listen to the words of one survivor, Peter Stoddard. He even suspected sabotage, saying it was as if that local train was ordained to be in their way. Now, while most theories don't go that far, they do point to a sophisticated cover-up by the Caledonian Railway itself, all to protect its reputation and its bosses from taking the blame.
So you've got these 2 competing narratives, right? On one side, the official verdict, gross negligence of 2 men. A simple, tragic human error. But on the other side, you have the conspiracy theory, a high-level company cover-up. The idea that these 2 men were made scapegoats to hide the company's own shocking failures, like knowingly using unsafe trains for the troops.
And the case for a cover-up has some pretty compelling points. For one, management knew that signalmen were breaking the rules with these informal shift changes, but they looked the other way. Then there's the credible theory that James Tinsley may have had epilepsy, a condition that could explain his memory lapse, something the company would have wanted to hide. And finally, you have to come back to them getting rehired. Was that just compassion, or was it the company making good on a deal, a reward for taking the fall and keeping quiet?
So over a century later, the Quintinshill disaster is so much more than just a historical event. It's really a stark lesson in how a simple human error can actually be a symptom of a much larger disease in the system, and how easily accountability can be swept aside when a simpler, more convenient story is available.
And that leaves us right here with this question. Was Britain's worst rail disaster really just a simple, tragic mistake made by two men on one summer morning? Or was it a convenient truth, designed to mask the deeper failures of a system and a company at war? The real answer, I think, remains buried in the ashes of Quntinshil.